What is something that a lot of people have, but won't often admit publicly? Debt. The sex doll market is thriving, but I don't ever hear people talking about their sex doll except in a joking way. Objects that could be fixed if you wanted to give the time, effort, or supplies, but you feel guilty for chucking at it, so it just kind of sits. Clothing that's a bit too tight. Maybe it's used to be your favorite. Maybe it's there if you lose a couple of pounds. Maybe it was a gift that you aren't going to wear, but can't be bothered to toss or return it. Mustard packets from Chinese takeout places. Mustard doesn't really go bad, so you just save them and they build up. You wouldn't admit if publicly because you forget that you them. Loneliness. As an MD who performs proctoscopy, trust me, hemorrhoids, gas, herpes. Tried to sing, like, really good. When I'm alone, I be hitting those high notes even though I sound like a dying walrus. Hemorrhoids. Phone addiction. Insecurities. Thoughts of suicide. Edit. Thanks to everyone who keeps sharing resources. It's great and please keep sharing publicly. But I personally am not in crisis and do not need resources sent privately. I was simply answering the question here. Also just want to add that having thoughts of suicide doesn't necessarily mean a person is in crisis. For some, like myself, it is just a feature of chronic depression and OCD and you learn to live with it. Talking about something on Reddit doesn't mean nothing is being worked on IRL. Sometimes a comment is just a comment. Despair and hopelessness. The stupid. Drinking problem. Sex toys. Jealousy. Money. Regret, anxiety, depression, financial insecurity, psychiatric issues, drug addiction. Adult toys. Socially unacceptable thoughts. Everybody is a little bigoted towards something. Extremely disturbing thoughts. Everyone has them, but stigma. A deposit box in a Swiss bank with a half-dozen passports. A bag of diamonds. A few $1,000s cash in each of 3-4 currencies. A pistol. And a USB drive containing important information. Narcissism, ego. Mental disorders. Anxiety and depression at the top of that list. There is still a huge stigma associated with this. Even though studies are showing that most if not all people have some sort of mental disorder. Kinks. A secret sexuality which is different from the one they proclaim in public. And this doesn't just apply to secretly being gay. There's also BDSM, cross-dressing, etc. There's even some adults wearing diapers at home as a fetish. A memory of doing something others would consider gross. Eating a booger, scratching their backside and sniffing their finger, tasting under breast sweat, and so on. An inability to cook. I know sparingly few people that admit to either not being a good cook or not knowing how to cook at all. Clearly some people are lying to themselves. My brother-in-law wanted to make the 7 fishes dinner for Christmas Eve. He had never done it before, and had never worked with a lot of the recipes. But he demanded he do everything because he wanted to impress everyone. 12 hours of cooking later we maybe had 1.5 fishes that were edible. Diarrhea. Fucked up family members. Anxiety. Worries. Codependency. Conversations with myself. Aloud. Open mouth smile and the TV. A Reddit account. Ugly big cotton pants. Comfy as hell, but never worn when anybody will see them. Pharmacist here. A lot of people have herpes. Violent urges. Fears. Insecurities. Shortcomings. Skeletons in the closest. Herpes. Almost every adult has latent herpes simplex. IBS. In Ireland, a copy of David Gray's White Ladder. Apparently. Bicuriosity. A sad marriage and kids they didn't want. Issues. Of any sort. Affairs and abortions. A separate sexual organ of unknown gender that has its own intelligence and can speak. You never heard of such a thing? See? No one admits it. A fetish. Issues with their parents. So many dynamics in those relationships. Very few people have healthy, stable relationships with their parents. Porn addiction. Anxiety. Sexual liaisons, especially with the same sex. I'm an out gay male. And the amount of cis, married straight men having discreet encounters with other men is staggering. It used to be even worse years ago. But now it's more common for people to admit to sexual fluidity. And for poly relationships to be a thing. So the stigma is a bit lower these days. But it still happens. Depression. It's so easy to make people think you're happy and fun when you're really drowning. Sometimes it's the happiest people who you'd never expect. Imposter syndrome? Trauma. Pocket squirrels, we all have them. Urinary incontinence. Rehash conversations or plan future ones with people who aren't there. Edit thanks for all the karma and awards. The half of us that do this apparently go hard. Main character syndrome. Dildos. They're overstimulated between work, a life-crushing economy, trying to balance relationships and still finding time for oneself. Most of us are overworked and feel dead inside doing the same thing day in and day out month after month. Some sort of racial biases. Mental illness. Much of the time the ones who are screaming from the rooftops about their mental illness are exaggerating it for attention, while the ones truly suffering do it in silence. Stress anxiety. Until you have a minor stroke like I did at 41. Probably butt plugs, especially the dudes. Herpes. At least 70% of humanity has oral herpes. Addiction. Trauma of some kind. Lack of fucking self-awareness, face with spiral eyes. Mental illness. In the U.S., untreated medical issues due to an inability to afford medical care. Honestly, I think porn addiction is probably a major problem nobody discusses. It's by far the most consumed content on the internet, yet everyone pretends they don't watch it. Lol. Disgusting browser history that would make them pariah if it ever came out in polite society. A crush. Kinks, fetishes evidenced by 50 Shades of Grey selling more than Thriller. The need to be seen, loved. Pick their nose. You know who you are. Problems. Gay experiences with friends as a middle school boy. Violent thoughts occasionally, hopefully not often. A small penis. Mainly because it's an invitation to be ridiculed and shunned by all society. It makes you the butt of jokes and automatically disqualifies you from all hookups. It sucks. Weed. Pimple bum. Depression? Loneliness. HVP. Most people don't even know they have it. Also luck. A lot of people will tell you they worked hard to have a good position in life. But a big chunk of them were lucky enough to be born in a wealthy family and don't really know what they say when they say hard work. Poor hygiene. Food stamps. The herpes. Herpes tears of joy.